Hello everyone. Today we will talk about the advantages and disadvantages of globalization. But before we get into this hot topic, we have to know first on what globalization is. Globalization is the term used to describe the way countries are becoming interconnected, both economically and culturally. It is an international process driven by trade, investment, technology and finance. This process has effects on the environment, culture, political system, economic development and prosperity, and on human physical well-being in societies around the world. Now let's get into the main topic, which is the advantages and disadvantages of globalization. Let's start by looking at some examples of the main advantages of globalization. Number 1 on my list is cheaper goods and services for consumers. Globalization encourages both producers and consumers to benefit from trade based on division of labor, specialization, and compare to advantage theory. Trade and globalization can lead to cheaper goods and services for consumers, which increases in terms of incomes, increased in profits, and businesses. Number 2. More competition in consumer markets. Globalization can make domestic markets more contestable. Contestability reduces monopoly. Number 3. Reduction in extreme poverty rates. Globalization has been associated with contributed to a significant fall in extreme poverty. Number 4. Gains from specialization of factors of production. Essentially, the idea that you build deeper division of labor, and you build global supply chains to optimize factors of production worldwide in the things that you best at. Number 5. Transfer ideas stimulates innovation. Globalization has brought a dynamic efficiency gains flowing from sharing, the fusion, transfer of ideas, skills, technologies, and that stimulates the process of innovation. Number 6. Gains from improved labor mobility. The gains also from the movement of labor between countries, nations, cross-border, and labor migration. Increasing the stack of labor in different countries, and also making the labor force more diverse. So that was the advantages of globalizations. We also have to consider some of the drawbacks, some of the risks, and disadvantages of this process of globalization. First of all, trade imbalances. Seeing the world economy increasing, imbalances in trade. Some countries may benefit to this trade imbalance, but other countries are suffering persistent structural trade deficits. Number 2. Dominant transnational corporations, and less cultural diversity. Emergence of dominant global brand businesses which have significant burns. They could squeeze out the local producers, and perhaps move in more standardized, as much as global world branded products. Number 3. Corporate tax avoidance. In a world where corporations are finding any ways to avoid paying tax, for example, through shadow pricing, through manipulating their cash flows, to countries where corporate taxes, in particular, are lower. Number 4. External costs from unsustainable growth. The challenges and threats to environment. Extraction of raw materials. Increased air pollution. Trading toxic waste. The collapsing of diversity. The massive challenge of increased concentration of CO2 and NO2 emissions. These are huge issues of the age. Has globalization contributed to that? Or kinda actually helped divide into solutions? Number 5. Growing relative poverty. Increased and relative poverty in many countries. When extreme poverty has come down, relative poverty or equality has gone up in many countries. Number 6. Brain drain effects. Disadvantages. For some countries who lost population, they may suffer depopulation effect. The loss of younger, often skilled workers. Looking for better work, better pay, in other countries. Globalization is a double-edged sword. The benefits of globalization is uneven, and there has been a backlash from those left behind, and who have seen their jobs and economic security threatened. Globalization raises important issues of equity, as well as efficiency.
Globalization has been a continuous phenomenon. The history of mankind is a proof to the fact that from the ancient times itself, people from different places have come together for trade, cultural exchanges, and also ideas. Globalization, industrialization, and modernization are three phenomena that go together after discovery unknown lands, when people came to know of existence of civilization completely different from each other. They soon become no existence of civilizations completely different from each other. Curious and those negotiated with each other for profitable interactions between them in these many commodities like species, textiles, fruits or vegetables which we are not available their own places. Now become scholars from different places have traveled to India too, and thus playing an important role in popularizing the Indian manuscript or even medicinal system like Ayurveda in other places. Similarly, countries enrich technologies depended on countries rich in natural sources for raw materials. Machine produced goods become popular because they were cheap in this slowly. There was inception of technologies advancement in these lands, less development areas too. Railways, communication lines, transportation improved over time. Distance and gap of communication between countries decreased, and thus the time of need it was possible to provide help each other. That due to feminines also lessened because of ease of transportation of food, grains. Thus rapid growth of everything brought the whole picture of the present of its form. Globalization advantages creates competition between foreign companies and those there is pursue on them to improve equality and structure for more consumer interest and sale. The price get cheaper to education quality has also become need of our and literacy rate have also increased communication has improved with progress in internet and media. Foreign companies setting up their institutes open up job opportunities for the lost country. Advantages of globalization. With the implementation of globalization, technologies has been altered to a great extent and paved the way for overall development. Globalization has helped provide better services to people worldwide and increase the GDP rate. Owing the globalization, government have been able to help economic growth, aid the advancement of infrastructure. Countries around the world and now have access to trade, the commerce worldwide with affordable commodities rates. Globalization has been supported domestic companies to satisfy the growth of foreign clients, hope and of the global frame. At disadvantages of globalization. Globalization can raise the problem of inequity everywhere in the world by increased specialization which result in poverty. Disadvantage of globalization. Globalization can increase the unemployment rate since it demands higher and skilled work at lower price. Over the years, trade imbalance has increased in developing countries by competition the market due to globalization. Globalization has industrialization that sometimes from the environment. Overall economic growth in such as developing countries may be lower due to globalization. Globalization is the integration of states through increasing contract, communication and trade to create a single global system in which the process of change increasingly binds people together in communication faith. Some economists see globalization as being is the best interest of states involved, while others believe that increasing modern state or global economic relations is harmful. In many ways, while globalization marks a movement in direction of more open world training government, it can also be connected to damages on independence, making countries lose the ability to be totally independent. As a result, issue of globalization and free trade are surrounded by excited debate and controversy. The economic demands of globalization have made countries less independent, making them incapable of taking care of their own issues. Economies and government with the help of foreign aid, the more the weaker countries take from 45 countries, the greater the dependence and the ability to take care of themselves. They will become while they depend on their countries for financial and political support. They do not learn how to more be sufficient. Globalization. Globalization, it has been said that arguing against globalization is like arguing against the laws of gravity. This statement from former Secretary General of United Nations and really captures the essence of debate happening around the globalization. This last decade, no matter how much we argue against it, globalization cannot be severed or stopped in any way. We cannot treat it as a process of which we are controlled perfectly. And that we know everything about we said started. But now it flies from its own wings, triggering side effects we did not acknowledge will take place at the beginning. Of course, as the globalization had a different effects according to the countries. We are taking about the answer will vary depending on the case. We are focusing on the aim of this essay is to look at globalization at a large scale than the destination to look at its features and effects to the world as a whole. Nevertheless, it was said earlier that globalization interfered with numerous effects of our lives. This essay will therefore study economic dimension of globalization, change in the political landscape of the world, that ecological consequence globalization has on the world, and finally the cultural aspects our globalization. First of all, economical speaking, globalization has lowered the trade barriers between countries by the means of trade blocks, like the Europeans, which increase sustainability, the volume of trade around the world. The United States nearly multiplied its traded goods values by 10 in 10 years, showing how globalization helped some countries grow at exponential level. These trades were assured by a new form of transitional companies. The mass creation of these firms added a new kind of actor in the process of globalization. They have possibilities of delocalizing in other countries and therefore stimulate the economy where they are going. However, they are so powerful that they sometimes outrun the states. For instance, Mobile would have the same as Norway. It was a country delocalizing to developing country may help stimulate the economy by proposing jobs, while the economy